Best ever, buddy. Best ever.
Yeah. Maybe that was what I was hoping to remember.
Oh, there you go.
While you're covering this, but, same set of the dream, I guess.
Hey, how you doing, Well. How many phones you got? Tablet, phone? Yes.
Work. I gotta bring my work calendar.
Good. Your report will direct
They would, but Monday, man,
They still want to, they want to manage personal devices.
that Cervelo was 4 of 18, 7 turnover, flooding. You're not gonna see it much worse than pointer than that.
I can't make it without shooting. You know, that's the problem. If I keep shooting, I'm gonna hit someone with that.
And that's stupid, that they just got the ball taken away both times. They were up on one with 32 seconds left. They just got it taken away.
That's why I don't yell.
I got mine on and off all day.
And they told us last week, or no, Thursday, that no one else would allow you to hear it in the car.
Just for
Hear it while we're out.
Are they gonna televise it though?
I don't think so. Would be the smart thing to do.
Yeah,
But they're,
put it on a webpage.
finally, doing electronic voting.
Yeah.
Like, make that available.
And they even asked when I pulled in our votes, especially show hands or. They're not even gonna tell anybody however long. That's the down, it's not like it's a scout ballot or something.
Yeah.
She doesn't get fouled, but she does get. Even though they are.
First general session.
Second one.
I mean,
Chris Farley, the other train is trying to.
our general session.
Yeah.
All. Yeah.
I asked them too, and they're not gonna say for them.
Yeah.
Regulations.
What's that?
I just said you start sounding as well.
I know, I've been to.
Yeah, I've been in a number of times this far, because you're so spread out, you can hardly tell where the village is.
Well, she said, no, no, we don't use that system. No. I could.
See, early 2000.
Okay, I have 6:31. Bow your heads and show real quick.
Father, I just thank you for this evening and for this group of leaders that's here to support our schools. I pray that you bless their decision making, and just thank you for this great community and school district that we're part of, and for the blessings that you pour out upon us. Thank you for this evening. In Jesus' name I pray.
The pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Ballmer. Berry.
Here.
Bounds.
Here.
Munson.
Here.
Smock.
Here.
Wagner. Here. Higgs.
Okay, any additions or deletions? Public comment, we keep it to 5 minutes, please, 20 minutes. 5 minutes per person, 20 minutes total. And I have Tamala Parcher.
All right. I guess I'm just coming to put a couple thoughts in our minds about closing the Joy building. I know it was said that we weren't closing it, we were moving, relocating, however it was said. So my question is why now are we talking about taking it, all the kids out of the building, and adults for that matter? We were told the district office was moving there, and that the pre-K was gonna be there. and we would still utilize the gym space, and everybody was on board with that. Okay, let's do that. Nobody really pitched a fit about moving the kids up here and doing that. Now we're hearing a total 180, we don't want anybody in the building. I'm just curious, did you reach out to the staff, to the admin, to the coaches, to the teachers, parents, anybody on this to see what their opinions were? Because I have reached out to tons of staff, and unfortunately they all say, we're not giving opinions because it's our job on the line. I don't feel like they should feel that way. I feel like maybe we should send out an anonymous thing and see how they really do feel about this. Because as a coach, it is almost impossible to get gym space right now. I don't coach anymore, and when I did, it was much easier because junior high volleyball was the same time as football. It was not hard to dig at all. Now it is. I know tonight our 6th grade was supposed to be practicing here, and they have moved to the shed because there's something here. We don't have room for 4th grade youth sports here right now. They're playing at the shed. Thankful for the shed because we have a lot of use out there because we don't have any gym space. So my question is why are we in such a hurry to close that gym? If the overall goal was to build an elementary like we just sent out a survey for, and we wanted that, for the most part, that's what it was voted, or the survey said, then why are we not using this building until that elementary can be built? You have to use the water, you're gonna have to use the heat, you're gonna have to maintain the premises, so why not utilize the building while we are waiting to build the elementary? Not only do we have sports in there, but we also do chorus concerts and band concerts, and we could do art shows and stuff like that. All of that could also be done down there in the building. I know that the boys and girls basketball are already running morning and late practices, some at the intermediate. What are you gonna do with that? And, there's wrestling that's gotta go in there somewhere. Baseball and softball use the gym for indoor training. I just don't understand what it saves closing those gyms. You still have to maintain, you still have to heat. We're still transporting kids there because it's a bus hub. So you still have to take kids to Joy and to New Boston to get home. So what's it hurt to take the kids to practice also, and then their parents pick them up like we've been doing for the last 10 years? I don't understand why we're in such a push to get them out of that into the building when it is not an issue keeping it open, and that was the whole plan to begin with, was keeping it open. So I just like to think, I understand that one of the comments on the survey was there's only 30% in the West End, but you're also still supposed to be supporting that 30%, even though we're only 30%. I don't know where we thought, I would be curious to know why we thought that this would be a good idea to close that building. I've got 2 preschoolers coming up, and the thought of them not having opportunity at preschool bothers me. I'm not sending my kids to Toledo to the Y, that is 45 minutes from my house to go to preschool when we have a perfectly good option right there in New Boston, or right there in Joy. If we could get them in Joy where they're all on the same level, that'd be even better. But I hope you're thinking about everything and not just closing the Joy School when we make your vote tonight. That's it.
Thank you. Lori Cordell?
Can you see me? Okay. I'm Chloe Cordell. I teach the preschool program at Apollo. This is my parent, Jess. She's here for some emotional support. I just wanted to go over, speaking on behalf of myself and Cassidy, the New Boston teacher, and Asha and Joy, some points that we have for why we would support being all together in one building. So just going down the list, we would like to be able to work with one another daily and as one program. Our class sizes would be able to even out to ensure that no student is ever waitlisted at one building while there are openings at another place in the district. Also, families who qualify for the all-day program would be less likely to deny a spot just because they don't want to go out to Joy if we are all just automatically in Joy. Our regional office of education family educator would be housed in this location with us. to be used as an additional resource to all classrooms daily, as opposed to only being able to visit us once per week. Our students would be able to socialize and build relationships with their peers from across the district during key social and emotional development periods. This would provide a greater mentoring opportunity from our highly experienced veteran teacher to myself and Cassie, who are newer to the program. This provides us with opportunities to plan and attend field trips and also family nights together as a preschool community. Consolidation would promote standard practices across all 3 classrooms as teachers, and we are able to better have communications about lessons and curriculum. There's more access to supplies and resources across classrooms, and all activities and supplies are housed in one location. Our special education caseload would be evenly dispersed across 3 classrooms to meet the 30 to 70 ratio of a blended classroom. And that's something that's been a problem before, where I've had up to a caseload of 10 at Apollo and New Boston Joy. We're at 1 or 2, and we've had to fill out waivers. Carolyn McCrory, my special ed coordinator, has had to fill out a waiver just because we were so high with special education students at Apollo that we weren't having that 70 to 30 blended ratio. All classes would have access to a really nice indoor space for recess. Currently, New Boston and Apollo Pre-K don't have access to the gym time for both classes, not because they don't want us in there, there's just not enough time with lunch and PE both being in there that we have a space available to us every day for gross motor. If the weather's below 25 degrees or raining, then we just have to try and keep them crowded in their room for that 2.5 hours. And our Illinois State Board of Education Preschool for All compliance mandates that we have 30 minutes of gross motor activity no matter what. And then the full day classroom is supposed to have 1 hour. That all being said, there are some things that we thought about that we wanted to be considered, and I'm sure you guys have probably considered too, but just the fact that we would still need breakfast and lunch, transportation from both towns or all the towns to Joy, and that would also happen midday, so they would have to go, the morning class would have to be transported back to their houses, and then they would also have to be picked up, the afternoon class, and brought to Joy, and then obviously taken home at the end of the day. We would still need access to certain school personnel, such as all of our therapists. We have a lot of students that we serve with special needs, and the school nurse and things like that, so that would be something to consider. The last thing that I have on here, next year is a state monitor year for us, so every 3 years we're monitored by the state of Illinois to make sure we're in compliance with our grant requirements, and we get scored on our classroom environment, and next year is the year that we're due for that. So there are a few things that I was just looking through my rating scale that they would look for. I'm not sure if the location has been decided for sure where we would go if we were put there, but just something that is close to bathrooms, that they are easily accessible for us, that we can get to those quickly when needed, and something that is close to the gym. We want to limit, they look for no more than like a 3-minute transition from like going back and forth from a gym or to the playground, and also across the parking lot, I guess, to that playground, which is also nice because right now at Apollo we kind of have to go all the way down the hallway, or we just have our grassy area. So the fact that that building has the playground out there that we could benefit from is nice. So yeah, that's about all I have. Something else I just wanted to mention, we do have Linda Housewright, who is our instructional coach for the region, and she's also been a state monitor before and can look at things like that. She's in the district visiting with us this week, so if you guys have an idea of what rooms you're thinking or where you would want to put us, it would be beneficial to probably have her take a look at those and just kind of give her opinion and see what she can do, because she's a really great resource. But that's all I have. Thank you.
There's nobody on the list. Does anybody else like to speak this time? Public. Okay, moving on to board comments. Board comments. I appreciate you coming and sharing your opinion, and I think a lot of what you read were in the email that you guys had sent. So correspondence are going around. I think Tab, everyone's seen them, but you, I believe. Okay. Approval of consent agenda. Is there any items that anybody like to separate out for discussion or separate vote? Okay, hearing none, I take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Palmer,
Yes.
Berry,
Yes.
Bounds,
Yes.
Munson,
Yep.
Smock,
Yes.
Wagner, Yates.
Yes.
Motion approved. Move on to committee reports. The finance report just got emailed. It's in your packet.
Separate.
Separate email just came through. Everybody's had time to look at that.
Black on the health insurance.
Yeah.
At least it went the right way.
That's right, $50 one way.
Really, the main thing we talked about is the tax levies, which I think we have as discussion items. And Toledo, proposed Toledo TIF, which that remains to be seen. Kinda.
That area sounds like they could do another area of the city or something, the new TIF district or something. Is that right? I'm sure they got.
It's not the exact same area. They changed it up.
They made it bigger?
They took a little bit, they took the general grind, all that stuff out. And then
Yeah.
they put on new residential lots. Okay.
We don't have to.
Nope. Anything on any of the other committee reports? Or on the building grounds, I guess? And then,
There was no transportation.
There is no transportation. The committee did not meet. I had hoped that we would be able to. The bus leasing bids, we have received both of those that we expected. Unfortunately, one was Monday night and the second one was last night. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the action items, but I'm not gonna recommend that we act at this time.
okay, moving on to action items. Action item 8.1, approval of the 2021 wellness policy.
Okay. And this is another item you had at your seat, this page with yellow highlighted. Last month, when we put that policy on display, there were no changes required at that time. Since then, and I think it was Monday, is that right, Angie? Tuesday? We did receive a change from the state that is required regarding food waste. And so the highlighted section will be an addition to our, a recommended addition to our wellness policy and how we're addressing food loss and food waste. And I would recommend that we table this until next month, since there is a change in that, and that we would approve this policy at our December meeting.
So we need a motion. I'll move to
table the approval of the wellness policy.
I'll second. Do we
Voice vote.
need voice voting? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Table until next month. Okay, 8.2, substitute teacher salaries.
Okay, I think you had my recommendation on this item in your packet. We began some annual changes in our hourly and substitute rates a year ago as it relates to the new minimum wage law in Illinois, and those changes will continue to be implemented each year until 2025. There are also some other changes that were recommended in there. We haven't changed many of those in the last 3 years, and we continue to have difficulty filling some of those positions, particularly in the areas of substitutes and nursing.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I ask for a motion to approve as written.
I'll move. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Oh, yeah, 'cause it's money.
Oh, money has group, okay. Roll call, please.
Berry,
Yes.
Bounds,
Yes.
Munson,
Yes.
Smock,
Yes.
Wagner. Yes. Yates,
Yes.
Palmer.
Yes.
Motion passes. Move to 8.3, relocate district office for 2022-23 school year.
You have my recommendation in your packet to relocate the district office to the vocational building in Joy for the 22-23 school year. The current district office space is needed for classrooms, likely special education classroom space at this building for next year with grades 6, 7, and 8. The district currently has available space in that building that it maintains for other maintenance needs. That classroom space in the front was deemed inappropriate for our early childhood program, and so it remains available for use, and the district office could be easily relocated there for the 22-23 school year until a permanent location is determined, whether it's that space or some others. It also has a large storage area where we would be able to move all of the items that are currently in the upper level of the storage room here and in the large storage room in the middle of this building that will need to be relocated somewhere in order for the 6, 7, 8 building to have additional storage space.
Any discussion?
Yeah, all the air conditioning, everything works in the building. I drove
Yes.
down and looked at it last weekend.
Yeah, vocational building, we actually put new air conditioning in that. Was that, I think, in the second year that it housed the full-day pre-K. And so those mini splits have been added in each of those classrooms there, in addition to the existing heat.
So other than, I mean,
But it's a standalone otherwise.
Yes.
That's not attached to the
Yep.
other building.
Not attached to these.
Okay.
and then, I know you can't foresee in the future or anything, was there any major cost to moving down there as far as the building itself?
No, the health, life, safety issues that were indicated were related to student occupancy, particularly pre-K occupancy, because their standards are even higher than K-12. But
So the fire marshal
fire
stuff.
marshal doesn't care about adults.
Okay.
Wi-Fi, you guys are all good for that?
Yep. Yeah, we did have already made, in the past, upgrades to the fire alarm system in that building. And that was needed even as part of our maintenance use. Phone service is there. Since all of our phones are IPs, phone numbers won't change. That's all just a programming issue.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please. Or, yeah, I guess we.
I'll move to relocate the district office to the vocational building in Joy for the 2022-2023 school year.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Is that Murphy?
Yes.
Second, okay.
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. Bounds,
Yes.
Munson,
Yes.
Smock,
Yes.
Wagner. Yes. Yates,
Yes.
Ballmer,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Motion approved. Move to 8.4, relocate pre-K for 2022-2023 school year.
Again, my recommendation is included in your packet, that we relocate the district's 2 half-day programs to the north end of the Joy building, along with the full-day program that's currently there. The classroom space that I indicated that would be available, that is easily sectioned off from the older 3-story part of the building, is the current chorus room, current band room, and the current health/former computer lab. So there are 3 large classroom spaces there. And again, many of the things that you heard Chloe mention, the ability to balance sections, particularly that special ed population, and to make available additional slots to students that might be on a waiting list at one location, or might benefit more from that full day program that's available.
Did you check with the architect on being able to kind of section off the heating so we're not
Yes.
fully heating? I mean, we don't want the other
Yeah.
side to freeze because
That-
the water lines and
Yeah,
stuff too.
the boiler system that heats that entire building right now currently uses 3 large circulating pumps. One to the north end of the building, where those 3 classrooms would be, and the 2 other circulating pumps into the 3-story wing. And so that is relatively easy to either not heat the water that's flowing in that other part. Again, we've probably got to maintain some level of circulation,
Right.
so you don't have things freezing and breaking.
Yeah.
But we are able to segment that up.
Because that gym gets so hot, you have to keep the doors open sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that gym gets crazy hot? The good gym.
Right, so now you're gonna be the same size boiler and not heat the other part. So that's the problem, once again, with it's oversized
Yes.
for this small area. So somebody's actually checked this out and made sure we can maintain the building without heating the old part.
Without heating, I mean, it has to be heated to some extent.
Right.
But,
Yes, with pipes.
but not at a classroom temperature.
I'm just concerned that it's way too large of a unit, because it would be sized for the 3 stories, that'd be all your heat loss.
And there will certainly be some inefficiency in that. But again, this is for the 22-23 school year, and once we determine, a longer-term solution, because if there is a new elementary school that's built on that site, that boiler room is in the demolition part. And the rest of that building then could either be heated as with a boiler system with the new construction, or it could be separated with separate rooftop units.
And then we're still dealing with the issue, so we're gonna haul the kids from the Apollo area to Joy, and then we're gonna take the kids from the New Boston area to Joy, correct? And then we'll still have to have lunches down there?
We'll have lunch for the full-day program just like we do now. But we also have to feed the New Boston students, because there is no kitchen in New Boston.
Right, well, we talked about that before, eventually that can come from here,
It could, yes.
because this is a much larger kitchen. So currently today, without the 7th and 8th grade, how many kids are there today? Ballpark, you told me less than 20?
In the
Pre-K.
the pre-K, yeah, there are 18, I believe, in that.
18, and that, it fluctuates, right? So I just wanna make sure we're all clear, so there's 18 there, we're gonna
Bring about
you said 60 give or
65,
take from Apollo and New Boston.
potentially 80 kids.
Potentially, but we know that the YMCA doesn't have enough kids, and Head Start's opening up their program.
Yes. And I did contact the regional office about potential changes to our program. We discussed reducing one of our half-day programs to another full-day program, and reducing the overall number of seats then from 100 to 80. But the ROE has informed me that that's not possible during this current grant cycle, that it does expire at the end of the 22-23 school year. I think we talked about that where it
206 grand.
yeah, that they run through from 19 through 23, and that at that point then we could look to rewrite that grant in a different way, whether it was 2 full-day sections and 1 half-day program, or to reduce it even farther if we don't feel that we have a number of kids to fill those seats.
Was there, I know we had talked, you were gonna ask them about having a half-day program where some of the kids continue on for a full day. You asked them that.
Amy's concern with that was that the morning program runs from 8 to 10:30, and you can, if my times aren't quite right here, go ahead and jump in. And then the afternoon one runs from 12:30 to 3, and so we don't have programming in that middle from about 10:30 to 12:30, when we've got planning time and lunchtime and those kinds of things for the staff that are in that program.
We're gonna set up busing from Apollo to there and New Boston to there as well.
And we do that busing right now, in midday at Apollo and at New Boston. And remember, for a number of these students, that they may live equally as close to Joy as they do to Toledo or New Boston. The line going this way is essentially the Millersburg-Seaton Road, and between the Apollo attendance zone and the New Boston attendance zone. So some of those kids may actually be closer to New Boston, or closer to Joy than they are to New Boston.
Right, we know our population points are New Boston and Toledo.
I wrote down some notes, and actually I have a couple of questions on the email that we got from all the staff, and it said it represented all the staff, so I'm assuming all of you guys were represented. But a couple of things was talking about going to one location instead of 3. How does that, and it's not, I don't actually think we even discussed was COVID policies on that. If one of the 3, any one of the 3 right now, is it shut down? Are they in pods, or how is it working right now?
It's in a classroom, and the pre-K has actually been treated a little bit differently, because it's so hard to police any proper masking for 3 and 4-year-olds. And when we've had 1 or more positive cases in those, the recommendation from the health department and our nursing staff has been that we quarantine that whole classroom. And so this week, or excuse me, I guess it was last week, I know we had your AM section was in that kind of situation. I think it actually ended up as an outbreak, because we had some additional positive cases there. And then just Monday, the PM section went down in a similar kind of instance. But it's not all the kids. It's those groups that are together on a regular basis throughout the school day.
Well, and that was one of my things. That email talked about a lot of collaboration, a lot of student interaction, and hopefully COVID's not going to be here forever. My goodness, we've had enough. But so I had that concern with that portion of it. And then the other question, I guess I had a question that said, how are our veteran and new teachers separated now? Because I know there was comment about having veteran teachers there with younger teachers to kind of teach. How's that separated out right now? Is it?
It's at an as hired position as we have, so separated. We don't necessarily coordinate exactly who goes where and what because of your status as far as when you were a veteran teacher. It's just, we had an opening at New Boston because Mrs. Fisher expressed interest in taking the 4-year-old room, and that's why we have Mrs. Murray and I forget for the same deal as the prior pre-K teacher, just either retired or moved on. I was boss, who was that Apollo before you?
Megan King.
So I don't know if she moved on, it just happened to be, that's just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's how they're hired, but I'm saying, right now as we stand, do we have all new teachers in one school?
They're all different
separated in their own
facilities.
islands.
Yeah,
It's just
there's
one
only
teacher
one
per-
pre-K teacher
One teacher,
in
Joy,
each position,
when you walk
so
in.
there's not an ability to.
And their program is completely separate, really, from the rest of the school.
It's like having a
Like
school
my
within a
pre-K
school.
teacher with my 7th and 8th grade, they can't really speak the same language. Well, sometimes they can.
I was gonna say, I'll bet there's some overlap.
Yeah, and I guess I was just thinking, so, I mean, my stance on this is I don't think that we should be busing, and I've had lots of people approach me on this, not quite as much as the mask mandate, but very, very close to it. Telling me that they want to keep the Toledo kids in Toledo and the New Boston kids in New Boston. You know, and I don't think it makes sense to have 3 spots open, but the big thing is with Joy, I'm not a fan of keeping anybody in Joy. And as far as the building itself goes, you know, there's been talk of, well, we're gonna have to maintain it anyways. Well, my hope is by June of next year that we're gonna have clear direction from the community with the referendum. And if they wanna build the school there, then great. We can start that construction and we wouldn't have to worry about pre-K kids being down there. The other thing is, and then if they don't, if the community says, no, we don't want to build a new school, we want to just keep them, we're going to have to put money into Apollo and New Boston, obviously. And at that point, you know, the pre-Ks would have to move out of that building anyways. So I do see some of the points that Mr. Petrie's brought, that you guys have brought, but I am not going to vote for putting the students in Joy. There are some good points to it, I understand that. But I think the big thing is with the busing and taking little kids that age outside of their hometowns. Obviously, we're in a rural community, we have people that live out in the country that, you know, have to be bused. There's also a lot of benefits for being out in the country for kids, so. But busing them, I'm not a fan of it, so.
You would rather us send our kids to Toledo? Like.
Toledo or New
the
Boston?
Furthest from here, and you would rather my kids come to Toledo than just go to Joy.
Toledo or New Boston? I don't
But
know
if we
what-
lose the 4-year-old program, then we do what? I'm sorry, you're on the wait list again.
I'm not suggesting we do away with any programs.
Where do you want the Joy building to go then?
I think it has to be split. I don't know.
We
what that-
already don't have room in New Boston for the pre-K when we move the 5th grade back down there. And then you wanna move more kids down? Like, it just doesn't
No,
make sense.
we discussed that. There's opportunity there. There's not more kids there today than there was 12 years ago.
And the thing is so, this is also gonna be a temporary thing too. We're not talking about a long time because you're either gonna get a new school or you're gonna get remodeled, possibly additions, but we don't know what that's gonna look like yet. So you're looking at for a year or two, I don't know the time frame depending on how everything goes, but.
And I get there's less kids down there now than there was 12 years ago. We used to have 5th grade down there, I understand that. We also didn't have a speech person there to talk to, we didn't have a therapist there to talk to, we didn't have a sensory room there for our special education kids to talk to, or to go to. And all of those things, I would hate to just give up on our kids because we don't want to be in the building. That's that's all, we're gonna lose all of that if you put those kids back up there.
Yeah, and I'm not proposing we lose any of that. I think that we put our heads together and we come up with a plan that we can
You
do
know,
that.
build on to New Boston and Apollo too.
What's that?
You think you're gonna build on to New Boston and Apollo too? Cause there's not. You literally would have to build 100 rooms.
And that may be the case if the community doesn't want to build a new K through 5.
We're talking next
Temporarily.
year, you don't have time for that. Like, you gotta make an action now.
Right, it
For
would be
next
done by
year.
next school year, I understand that, but, and I know we have to make a plan for it right now, but I think there's opportunities at Apollo and New Boston that we can get this to work.
I just had a quick question. If we don't go out to Joy with Asha, is she gonna be there by herself, or where will she be put?
He wants to split them too.
Cause I don't think that we can just split them, cause we're only funded for 3 classrooms. So we'll have to stick with, we still can only have 3 classrooms.
Yeah, you'd have to send that class to either New Boston or Toledo.
Right, and but it's still supposed to support either where you put it, like, if it's in Toledo, you're supposed to have to support the New Boston kids that want full day. If it's in New Boston, you still have to support the Toledo kids that want full day, no matter where she goes.
Here's the thing, the referendum will be in June. By then, school year is over. So it hurts nothing to put those kids there just for this year. I mean, that's all that this motion is for, is just for next year, until a decision is made. And so there's no overlap between construction and having this program at Joy for this school year. And a second point, transportation, it's equidistant between the 2 programs we currently have. And the rural kids, they ride the bus early every day. It doesn't matter. So I don't see the benefits of moving or having the program separate, or I don't know, and you would have a problem with where do you put the 4-year-old room? We don't have enough staff for 2 4-year-old rooms. Those are my main points. I hate to belabor this thing where, you know, let's keep everybody separate all the time. I think a lot of the community is ready to put everybody together from the beginning. So that's just those are my 2 or 3 cents.
So why can't the 3 stay separate until we figure this out? Is there any reason we can't?
Where are you putting the Joy one? This
The
is what is
problem is so if you were
17 kids in the whole building.
if you were to keep Toledo here, the 5th grade's moving back to there, and the 5th grade's moving back to New Boston.
Right.
At the building and grounds meeting, the principals were telling us that it would be really tight. They thought they could do it, but it'd be really tight. But we'd still have to have the 4-year-olds down at Joy by themselves. And I think the thought was you try to bring them all together. And I guess my opinion on it is, I want to get down to as few buildings as we can as a district as soon as possible. I do want that because it would save us money in the long run. It's the right thing to do for a district of our size. But I'm kind of torn when I hear the staff and the principals telling me that, you know, hey, it's going to be rough to do this and, you know, have it done in 1 year. And so I'm kind of more apt to vote to, you know, keep those programs down in Joy for 1 year, probably 2, because if we pass a referendum in 2022, we're not going to have a building built right then. So it wouldn't happen for the 23-24 school year either.
We're planning on these 5.
What's that?
We're planning on these 5 classrooms in 1 year.
Okay.
So it's not to say it's impossible.
Right, but I'm just saying that, you know, I'm trying to be realistic. I want to save money for the district as soon as possible. But I guess just listening to what, and that's all I have to go on is what you guys are telling us. And so I will vote to have them, the pre-K district, enjoy, knowing full well that we're really trying to reduce the number of buildings. 'Cause that's why Joy's in the shape it's in. It's why the high school's in the shape it's in. We've had too many buildings to maintain, and we got to get down. So I'm fully, and I think we need to get our act together on the building and grounds. I'm the chair of that, but we got to get our act together so that we can get this moving treading in quicksand on the direction we're going with the referendum, so we really need to start making some decisions,
So I was gonna keep asking
But,
questions.
yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
For the part-time though, I mean, if you're saying you're supporting that, then why don't we just leave it the way it is today and there's just that one class down there? Why do we, I mean, if you're talking about making these decisions, asking
And I was just
this
going off-
other group to,
Yeah.
bring their kids this way and the whole group from New Boston. 'Cause
Right.
I've already been asked today from New Boston people
Right,
as to why I have to take my pre-K kids to Joy.
yeah, no, I
They were
get
talking
it,
about 3 and 4-year-olds.
I get it, I was
I
just going
understand
off
from-
what they said, that their buildings are kind of busting at the seams to keep it with, when you bring the fifth graders back.
Well, that's a whole nother story in itself, because we
Right.
know there's less kids in all the buildings.
I'm not sure about Apollo, but when you add the fifth graders there, it'd be back up to,
Less kids, less.
We probably have to go to our own card and probably need to move music back to this page. It's tight.
I believe that.
That's a very good point. Like, there is maybe less kids, but it doesn't matter how many kids are in the classroom.
No, go ahead.
It's-
Talk. You can talk. Go ahead.
2 kindergarten, 2 first, 2 second, 2 third, 2 fourth, 2 fifth. It's the same amount of classrooms that you're going to need now, whether there was 20 kids in the class versus 12 now. It doesn't matter.
Sam?
No, I'm good. You can go, sorry. I'm not talking.
Yeah, the other issue with that, as far as the students being in Joy, that you are, if you have the referendum in June, and at least where I stand at is, if we build that school, that's fine. If we don't, then I don't wanna have to maintain any part of that building. And so if you have the Joy, if you have all the pre-K there, then you also have to maintain all that building, the grounds, everything else.
But
So,
no matter what you do, Mike, you can't just walk away from it when the weeds grow up.
I agree with that,
That's
but
impossible.
I also think there's potential people that would take that over and make it Alexis Fieldhouse, something like that. You know, we could work out something as far as renting the gym, having first rights, stuff like that, so there's other options besides us having to
I do
take
not
care.
understand this whole thing with the gym. But why do we want to walk away from this gym? I mean, I know that was when we're not voting on tonight, it was in the buildings and grounds meeting. What the heck are we thinking walking away from this gym?
Because the gym's attached to everything.
Exactly, but it is needed. All 3 gyms could be utilized down here for everything. And I just do not get this fascination with, let's bulldoze that sucker today. I don't get it. That is the nicest gym in the district, by far. And I love the high school, okay? All my kids go through there. I only have one left too, but it's not near as nice as that gym in Joy. But we just want to bulldoze the sucker because we don't want that building there anymore. We could utilize that forever. Even if it was just that little part that was left, you could utilize that for anything for this district, for years. I don't see the fascination with bulldoze that sucker today. I don't get it.
So, I'm not saying bulldoze down the gym, but the thing is that gym is in our community, it can be used by our community, but we don't, as a school district, don't have to maintain and upkeep it, and that would be the only standalone thing there, if that would be the case.
Okay, so for between now and next month, if we decide on that portion next month, I want you to think how this is gonna affect the kids in sports, from the little bitties all the way to the seniors, to lose 3 gym spaces. So I just want you to think about that for the kids, not for us, for the kids, because they are the only ones that matter right now. Just them. They're already doing late practices now. And so why we want to make it worse is beyond me. So just for the next month, let's all think on that, I would hope.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, Scott, then what would be, you'd have a janitor there, things like that, secretary, how we
Yep.
gonna answer the phones? Okay,
And
so kind of
we
still
would-
have
We
full
would
staff.
probably continue to run that kitchen then. That would be much more convenient for the kids in that building and also easier for Apollo gives this kitchen a little transition too. This kitchen's already gonna add another 200 kids for next year to what they're used to serving. And so if they ultimately would end up, depending on what we do, providing meals for New Boston, then that's maybe a little better transition that we don't dump an extra 400 meals on them immediately. Because that's a big step up, and yes, the kitchen could probably accommodate that, but our staff's gonna need some work, and we probably need to upgrade some equipment as well.
Where would the secretary be then? Would they be, is that office part of the third story or?
There is an office area, that's part of, just off the hallway, I think.
Oh, we're like.
Mr. Stockham used that.
Basketballs.
Yeah.
And all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
You can't use the old office downstairs. I don't care.
That is part of the three-story wing, and so that's the part that we definitely try to stay out of.
I didn't know where
So
you
you wanna
wanted
know
it.
where you put the secretaries and the janitors, that business, where would the janitors?
That the maintenance area behind the kitchen is not part of the three-story wing, where their current space is.
And we don't have to make any changes to the busing, we bus these kids from Apollo and New Boston.
I mean, the routes will change, but we're busing kids now.
But we're busing them for just pre-K or for
Yeah,
seventh?
we're busing them just for pre-K.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Anybody like a motion to approve the relocating pre-K for 2023 as proposed?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Munson?
Yes.
Smock?
Yes.
Wagner? Yes. Yates?
Yes.
Ballmer?
Yes.
Barry?
No,
Bound?
No. Okay, motion passes. Approve bus lease. You don't wanna-
Yeah, and I did give all of you a summary sheet. I emailed the full bid specs to the members of the Transportation Committee, and I don't know if you guys even got a chance to see those yet. But Bernie and I both have some questions that we need to ask of the two companies that submitted bids for that. And I want to make sure that we schedule a Transportation Committee meeting before we leave tonight, and that we have a recommendation to bring in December. I would also encourage any of the board members that are attending the joint annual conference this coming weekend to take the opportunity to look at both a Thomas bus and an IC bus. They'll both be available to walk through in the exhibit hall in the basement of the Hyatt Regency, where some of you might actually be staying at, I'm not sure. But it's kind of nice for you to see them in person once in a while and get an idea of what they look like and what some of those features are. Julie brought it up already. We're seeing significant cost increases in the lease prices on these buses and on the purchase price as well, if that was a way we wanted to look at. I can tell you right now, the Thomas buses that we currently have, we have 6 Thomas buses and 6 IC buses, both coming off lease now. We exercised the 3rd year option on the Thomas buses we have, and the ballpark annual price for those Thomas buses in these same categories of a regular bus, a bus with luggage, and a bus with a wheelchair lift were $14,000, $15,000, and $16,000 a year
For lease.
for lease. And you can see what these are. They're like 25, 26, and 27. there's a similar increase on the IC buses as well. We've got 6 of those currently under lease, and the same kind of jumps on those prices.
Don't hold your breath.
Alright, so entertain a motion to table till next month.
Move to table the bus lease till next month.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Moving to information discussion items. 9-1 is FOIA request. I think someone just wanted to know how we're spending our SRO funds.
I haven't seen any newspaper reporting of that yet. I suspected that she was collecting that information from a number of local districts, but I haven't seen anything done with it yet.
School report card, 9.2.
Okay. There's a lot of information that's not recorded due to COVID in this year's school report card, much like last year's. But the one thing that I would like to point out is what's called chronic absenteeism. And that's something that we were really impacted by last year. Something that we continue to struggle with to some extent in getting kids used to coming back to school on an everyday basis. Because there are a lot of kids and families that got used to not going to school or not sending their kids to school on a regular basis. And that number in there is on the district profile, you saw 25% were considered chronically absent.
And that doesn't, COVID doesn't count it, does it, or not? Like if they're gone for 10 days or?
That they were gone without excuse.
Okay.
When they're quarantined, correct, it doesn't know that.
Yeah, if they're quarantined, it's not. Okay.
The other piece in there, I did want to point out on the funding portion, you'll see that with coming into our 4th year now of the balanced funding model, evidence-based model, that we've moved up to 70% of what ISB's model predicts that we need to properly educate and house our students. That 70% still represents a $5 million a year shortfall. You know, so when we talk about things like facilities or curriculum or social emotional needs, I think it's important to put in perspective how we could be spending an extra $5 million a year. That makes a lot of bond payments on new construction, on new programming and supports for kids, and we're just not there yet. We hope we can be. When this started out, we were down around 62 or 63%. So we're making some progress, but it's slow.
So where do you see the shortfall at? The local level or the state
No,
level?
at the state level, and the state's well aware of that.
They just like to tell us that they're not paying us.
I was sure.
They're being transparent about the shortfall.
I was sure hoping the state wasn't saying, hey, you guys aren't paying enough locally.
On that 25%, I don't know if we know, but is that across the board in all grade school, intermediate? Is that across the board? Is that kind of, or is it heavier in one area or the other? I know this is district-wide,
Yeah.
but just, are we seeing that in all the grade levels, or is it more in high school?
Those are the kids that went remote that we never heard back from.
Okay.
And our graduation rate, 88% is down a lot, right? It used to be,
I think it's usually around the 95, 96%.
that's what I thought.
So like, just you look at kids that were attaining grade levels, we had that discussion in here where it was across the whole school.
Right.
That happened to seniors as well, and gain credits.
Because our dropout
It's
rate,
a pocket that I think that'll come back, but that happened across every grade level.
dropout rate's 4%, which seems high, but it doesn't seem like that's a lot. When you figure 4% of 1,300 kids. Or is that 4% of the senior class? It'd be of all the kids.
And what you're seeing here, this is just the 2020,
Right.
21 school
Yeah,
year.
so it's a lot of reflection of COVID.
And I can, on a number of these, if you actually go to the interactive school report card, you can take any one of these and look at a multi-year trend. In almost every one of them, you can see a 5-year trend data, just to see where that's at. And last year was a little bit exceptional.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay, 9.3 levy.
Okay. Finance Committee spent some time talking about the 2021 levy. That's for property taxes payable in 2022. We discussed in previous months what we saw as a substantial increase in the district's EAV, and because of that, the district's able to maintain a flat rate in terms of the rate that's imposed on the taxpayers and their EAV, and generate a significant increase in funds that would be available across all of our funds. Last year, we levied about $8.7 million based on a tax rate of 484. This year, that same tax rate of 484 generates a little over $9.3 million. So it actually ends up being almost a $650,000 increase. And we expect to see that same kind of increase next year as the TIF expires here at the end of December, and we'll see an influx of almost an additional $20 million in EAV from that TIF district expiring all by itself.
But they're trying to start a new TIF district.
The new TIF just establishes a new baseline. We gain all of the increase, the increment. So when the one that's expiring now, when it started out, it was about $4.5 million back in the 80s.
I think it was 80 and 86. They were.
Yeah, the base EAV was about $4.5 million. It may be pushing 24 million, 25 million when it expires at the end of this month. And so we'll capture all of that increment. And even if they were able to extend it, that's going to be the new base EAV. And so we get the tax dollars from that base EAV. We just don't get any of the future growth. And so the piece of property that's incorporated on the proposed map, and I don't know what stage they're at now. I mean, the city council met on Monday night. All of that undeveloped region, we're not collecting many tax dollars off that now. There's no development there. Farm ground.
Well, I haven't seen it. I just know the old one. I spent many a meeting dealing with that. That was crooked as a guy who started. Oh, my bad.
So you're saying it looked like the state of Illinois map?
Yes. Definitely.
All right, good.
So the proposed levy you have maintains the same rate for 2021 as for 2020 at 484, and represent a $650,000 increase. In December, we will have a formal levy hearing as required, since the increase exceeds 5% based on the increase in the EAV, and we would actually vote to adopt it at that point.
So just to be clear, for a lot of folks, our rate is not increasing. So when their taxes go up, it's not because our rate increased, it's because their property value increased.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
If your property value
Right.
increased, then by maintaining a flat rate, your taxes go up.
Go up, right.
And the school district portion of your tax bill represents approximately 50%.
We always get blamed for raising taxes. We really did.
The only time I think we've ever raised this is we've been on the board.
We never had.
But
We
didn't
had
raise it to
we had
what
one
we
year
were-
that was above the 5%, and we had to have a truth in taxation hearing, that was
But that wasn't because,
2015.
that again wasn't because we raised the rate, it was because.
We did raise the
Did we?
rate just a
We raised it because
Just a
Riley
little
was
bit.
freezing something.
They were talking about raising property taxes at the state, on the state level,
Okay.
but that was the only year that it was changed, that I.
I could have had it. That's the only time we ever raised it.
That year, we were legally required to do the truth in taxation.
Right. That was voucher, right?
Well, no, Dr. Eichmann.
Yeah. You can see it on that graph. Yeah, that's your rate since consolidation.
Any other questions on, or discussion on the levy?
Oh, did you want to touch on the point about the municipal fund, municipal retirement fund, why it's decreased so much?
Oh.
Just for everyone else.
Okay. Yeah, the finance committee meeting, we talked about the actual levies and some of the individual funds. IMRF, Social Security, and TORC are unlimited levies, meaning you can levy as little or as much as you need. Both IMRF and Social Security have substantial fund balances, and so in those funds, the levy requests actually less than the amount we would actually need to fund the year's expenses, and we'll use some of that reserve. So in the budget, you'll actually see a deficit in that fund because we're going to spend more than we take in. But in the end, we're still in good shape because we use reserve funds to cover that. In that increase is offset in the tort fund, where we have an increase in the levy there as we increase that levy to cover the additional expenses of our SROs now as we move forward. So that's where we see we're lowering our levy in one fund and increasing it in the other and maintaining a flat rate.
Move to 9.4, press policy, quarterly updates for.
Ooh, Ty Taylor.
What about me?
Do press. Fake Taylor.
It's a different
press.
That's what I said, Ty Taylor. My quarterback right there one time. Right there.
Any questions on the discussion on the press policy? Okay. Move to 9.5, funding bonds, working cash bonds.
We spent a fair amount of time at the Finance Committee discussing bond sales at this time. One of the concerns that's been discussed, not only by this board, but some of the community members at our meeting brought up, was the fact that prices are rising, rather quickly right now. We're seeing increases in interest rates, or suspect that there may be additional increases moving forward. We've talked about our ability to issue bonds without impacting our tax rate, and Tim King from King's Financial has put together some estimates that I included in your packet. If I can get through all these press policies.
That's what I was gonna say, it's,
Page 212.
Page 212.
212.
Well, I have a hard copy, so that's what I'm gonna use. But essentially what you can see from that is that we have the ability to issue over $15 million worth of funding bonds right now and capture the current interest rates, which are substantially lower than they have been in past years. In fact, many area school districts are selling bonds for less than 2% interest right now. That I would recommend we consider selling some or all of our capacity to bond at this time and have money on hand while we await the outcome of our referendum in June, rather than wait until June to sell bonds when the interest rate could be substantially different and cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of those bonds. And if you are so inclined, Mr. King would like to come and speak with the board at a special meeting specifically related to that sale.
I don't see a downside to it.
Well, the only downside is when you have to pay interest for an extra few months is all.
Yeah.
That's the only downside.
Right, but we could pay a lot more.
You would have the money in
later.
hand that if you know there are some things you want to do, I mean, we know that we want to do some work, there's work we want to do at the high school. There's work that we may do at one or both elementaries, or we may commit a large portion to a new elementary. And there may be additional work that we want to do at this site. And so we'd have funds available to begin that process on the things that we know about.
Even
The elementary
if
school.
you don't draw the money, you still pay the interest on it, right?
You still
So
pay
the
the,
bond,
you
whatever-
sell the bonds, so
You
if
sell
10 million or 15 million.
in bonds.
We're gonna
Interest
start
is
paying the interest as soon
from
as
the
we get the
moment
money.
that you sell the bonds.
But you're not gonna, we have to go through a process, I don't know if you wanna explain it, it would be January, February, March.
Yeah, the process, you'd have if we had a special meeting, Tim proposed a schedule, could be you have a special meeting related to bond sales and bid certificates the week before our normal December meeting, so December 8th, I think that is.
Yeah.
You know, you have your December meeting when you actually have your bond hearing, the BINA, bond information and notice. You have to wait 30 days then. In January, you actually sell bonds, and then you actually get money by February, and then you start paying interest.
When do you get an opportunity to lock the rate? At the moment you sell
At the
them,
moment
or
you sell, yeah.
not? You don't do that in advance.
Yeah. Typically not in advance.
Right, I'm not just assuming that, that's what.
I had a question, it's not necessarily on that process, but, the O&M fund sitting at 3 million right now. Okay, so is that a large chunk of that, is that from when we sold bonds the last time? Or is that
If you
sitting somewhere else?
compare
In the working cash?
in the cash balance, and I'm not, a large chunk of that is investment income. When we sold bonds the last time, we bought $4 million worth of our own bonds. About $1 million of that came out of the ed fund, which is the piece that we've been paying back, and paying back, it's actually on this month's bills. About $1.5 million of it came out of the O&M fund. So that money only appears there on paper. It's an investment that will get paid back over the life of that bond. So there's really maybe $1.5 million cash. The other is investment funds. The same thing's true in working cash, and you probably see on the balance sheet, what's the number you see there? 2 million. And you actually, about $1.5 million of that is investment. If you look at cash, then there's only a few $100,000 there that's actually cash. And that's the ed fund, because it had the lowest cash balance, gets paid back first, then the O&M, and then the working cash.
Do we have, since we bought our own bonds, see, this is where I need your help. Do we have the capacity to pay off a good chunk of this Series 2018 before we do another?
That would on the schedules that are proposed, that would be refinanced as part of the
Into-
additional bonds there.
Why, that's what I was just wondering, is there a way we could pay that off so we don't have that rolled into the new issue? Or do we have enough to get rid of a chunk of that debt? Or that's why I'm asking, because I don't know. That's
We
a
could
possibility.
pay down a portion of that debt, but I think it's important also to have a readily available cash balance on hand and not, not use all the cash on hand to pay off these investments too early.
Cause is it just under 600,000?
Yeah.
Is that all?
Yep.
Per year.
Yeah,
As a
now,
person.
the one bond is being, the 2016
Is done this year.
is done this year. We're making our final payment on that one next week. The 2018 is the one that has about 5 years left.
I just didn't know if there was a way to reduce that principal of 3.3 million that we still owe for that. So we don't, if we're issuing 15, does that include the 3?
That would be in addition to it.
Okay, so it wouldn't be like bumping out more money out of the new issue.
Yeah.
So it'd be together, it would be 18 total. That's what you're saying.
Since you'd have bonded out, but only 15 is new. And-
Right,
and you-
but if we did the 15, and we do, and the community says they want a new grade school, we build a new grade school for 15, but we still, the health, life, and safety in high school still has to be done too.
We still have some work there that has to be
And
done.
that's,
But we have that money on hand to do that in,
Yes.
in the funds that we currently.
In the health, life, safety fund, we have about
Yeah.
$1.2 million right now on hand.
right, but the high school takes what, 6 million, health, life, and safety?
In the, I don't remember what that new number was, but
Ballpark.
they identified a number of
So
issues.
technically, the two together now are the 24 million. Ballpark. You're saying 15, 3, and then if the high school's 6.
I don't know if that was the number in.
But it's something, so
It's
no
something.
matter what, if
Yeah,
we
they
did
identified
bond it,
more.
you see what I'm saying, Don? If we said we wanted 15 and we put that all in the new grade school, you still gotta borrow whatever the high school takes to get it up to speed.
And that's why we met, the principals and I met with Gray, a little over a week ago to talk about, what was in that estimate for that combined elementary school, but if those things are really all accurate, because the big thing was enrollment, where we were really talking about 600 kids, and we're not, we're talking about 500 kids. And what does that do to the square footage? Because where you save money is really on reducing square footage.
Right, but I just, like I said, those things, the rest will have to be borrowed as well.
At some point, we currently don't have health, life, safety amendments outstanding for any of those things, additional pieces that they identified.
Right.
The 1.5 that you said we currently have in our funds for the high school is the previous, there's the
Our
submitted.
previous project, but also from a total number of projects that were identified at the junior high that will not be moving forward.
And the 6 million number he's talking about, is that required for the
Not-
health, life, safety, or is it
not
just
at this-
requested?
Not at this time, and it hasn't been requested. It was identified by Gray, but before it becomes required, you'd ask the architect to write an amendment for that. We approve the amendment, submit it to the state board, and once you do that, then the state board issues a demand to remedy, fix that problem.
Yeah.
You identified a problem, you told us about it, we tell you to fix it, and when they do that, they give us, that grants us levy authority then to ask taxpayers for the money to fix that problem.
But we don't really have to ask them on a health, life, safety.
You don't have to ask the public.
Right.
No.
We don't have to ask. So I'm just saying, if we put the 15 million in one new school, that's a for sure, and then we will do the other. And we don't have to ask them. So they'll
If
need to
the
know.
board voted to
Right.
approve those, yes.
Right.
So, what we talked about, and I guess we need to finish that conversation. No matter how the money's spent, we know we have to spend at least $14, $15 million in the life, health, safety that we currently have. So if we do nothing, we still have to spend that money. So we're gonna have to borrow the money.
No, I disagree with that, because we wouldn't be fixing Apollo in New Boston.
Well,
Is that correct, Scott?
There, if, there will be some
There wouldn't be
savings in
much,
health,
yeah.
life, safety. Just like I said, right now, some of the funds that we have were levied to pay for fixes at Joy that we will not be moving forward with now. So that's health, life, safety funds you can put towards another approved health, life, safety project.
We don't have to ask for an amendment to use that.
No. No.
We can just pick whatever we want to use that for.
Yes, for an existing, it can be used for an existing.
For an existing one that they recommend, but not require. Use it for required.
You can't use it for the recommended, you can just, or that's where you submit it.
Yeah.
But we need to decide if we.
One, if you're interested in moving forward with any bonding, that I lock in Tim to come meet with us and we'll have a special meeting on December 8th for the purpose of starting the bonding process.
And it doesn't
I think
matter,
we
if
can
we
do
can
that.
bond as much as we want, and if we don't need it, if we don't need it or use it, it can get paid back without, I mean, immediately. if you
Yeah,
want.
yep. And that's, if you totally change your mind, yeah, you,
Right.
what you're out is all your fees. You know,
Whatever interest you pay.
you know.
I mean, I honestly, Don, I was for borrowing it. I really was, but I think it's the right thing to come in. And we need to listen to this guy tell the story.
Yeah, especially,
We know.
we know interest rates are gonna go up.
And it's December, which means we're gonna get a Christmas Eve.
You know what?
He gives us Christmas Eve.
Oh, this guy does?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, he's
legal?
a musician.
Are you taking
Yeah,
stuff
he
on the
makes-
side?
Yeah, he makes.
All the money
So,
you make from this
Yeah.
guy?
Is the date, is the only date that you can come?
That was his preferred date,
What date is it?
the 8th. He had that date on.
December 8th.
Are you guys good with this, is everybody good with December 8th?
I actually am not, but I don't know what time I'm gonna be done.
What time would it be?
I haven't pinned him down on the time yet.
I think me and
What are they
Mike
done
are
by
the
Bill,
same
or
day.
are they done around?
I prefer not the 8th either.
I think we're having our winter
They went
program
from
for that.
6:30 to 7:30. You could do it earlier.
Yeah, we could, I could do probably
just say
around
yes
5.
every time.
That was, but you're, doesn't work for you.
Well,
either.
where's it gonna be?
I really
You
don't.
just pick a date and go with it.
At 5 o'clock.
Because we can,
They're gonna make
we
it
can go at 5.
It's a
Stick
Wednesday,
around
right?
and maintain.
It's a
Oh,
Wednesday.
so that's,
I'll probably
if
be
you
there.
have something in church on Wednesday,
Yeah,
right?
have Easter, but that's, if we have it at 5, I wouldn't be done.
What about Tab?
Tab.
I don't know what time we're back from my appointment, so.
From TSA.
You can always call it.
Yeah.
Well, let me see if I can line him up for 5, then on the 8th.
So we're gonna listen to just Tim Payne.
Just gotta give them a while.
It's dark by 5, Tom.
She pretty much sleeps. whenever we
Start
get
by
in the car.
4:30.
I saw him scowling down there.
Okay, community survey, 9.6.
I gotta go let my kid know I'm in here on this ride. I'll be right back. If I can stand up.
I have a request for some further discussion regarding the community survey. And I've had some requests about whether or not we would release the full comments for that. In this, and my initial thinking was that we wouldn't. We said that it was going to be anonymous up front. We had the analysis of the comments as well as some exemplars. That information was all reviewed. But in reading through them again, I'm not sure that any additional ones are personally identifiable. And wanna talk about any specific ones, or if you'd like me to go ahead and release them, I don't see any problems with that either.
The unfortunate part, usually comments are just complaining, you know, you don't see a lot of the positive.
Well, and I agree.
I read them all.
It's
And
like
it's
reading
still a survey's a
comments
survey.
on a long Facebook thread.
You know, it's this many comments compared to this many that surveyed. So I don't think it's a real good representation of the survey. Like I said, let's get it to the voters.
If we go to the graph, when they were going over the results, the, you know, option 1, option 2, he told us to look at the purple, right? Which was the non-parents, non-staff.
Yes. They have more weight, right?
Right. And to me, if I'm looking at that right, so option 1, consolidate operations. Option 2, continue to maintain 2 separate schools. 3, I would support either option. So if you throw the 7% in the purple on top of the 36%, you're at 43%. So you're basically, the communities would support either one, is kind of how I read it. And so I've had a lot of people, I know what the survey said, that people want to consolidate the schools, but I've heard from people in the New Boston area that are not excited about losing their elementary school and having their kids bust. Heard a lot of people from the Toledo side saying the same thing. I'm not sure how to move forward. I know there were a lot of people who weren't happy with how our survey was written. They felt like it was kind of trying to push one agenda, which was funny because I don't think any of us really saw that when we might fight up a little bit.
It didn't seem like we could agree on it for months and months.
I know, it
Yeah,
was
Yeah, I felt like it was biased towards building this new school. The key thing that I had an issue with that we talked about, and that I've had a lot of complaints about, was the fact of comparing the 17 million for a new school K through 5 versus 17 million in the 2. And so people were like, and it's just, to me, it's a common sense thing. Well, 17 million to fix up some old schools or 17 million for a new one? And so a lot of people said they even voted for the consolidation to do the school. Because if you're spending, they don't want to throw a lot of money into old schools. And then once I explained, no, it's like $4 or $5 million, something like that, you know, depending, you know, between the 2 grade schools. And they're like, well, I would take that choice every time. So versus the consolidated and busing kids, but.
And then they wanted a new school, and we said it would cost 17, but they weren't willing to have 17 levied.
Well, that's not necessarily true, not enough of them to make he's saying that 14 million is about or 15 million was about where he thought that we passed the referendum.
Because
Randy's
based
saying
on
there
the
wasn't-
data we supplied, we thought at that time, flat tax rate was about 13 million.
Right.
And we were gonna add about $20 to your tax bill to get to 15.
Because there was quite a few people that would have been interested in 23 million or whatever it was. There was a pretty good chunk of people, but not enough.
Right. But he did say that the way they calculated that a referendum of 14 million was all that would pass.
That's what he thought, yeah, it was 14 or 15.
So it's kind of, they say they want something, but then they don't want to pay for it. So.
Well, I want a new truck, but
I know. You can pay for it. You pay for mine. But I don't know. It's a.
But the purple bar says non-parents and non-staff.
Right.
So that means no parents are in those numbers and no staff are in those numbers.
Right. That's what he told us to focus on.
And I don't understand that because parents are the ones that get most involved.
Right.
Well, I
They're
think,
the ones that
But
are
they-
being
they
I
spend
think
all-
that's
they
weighted
would be the ones
for
that spend all
the
the money.
voters.
There's a
That's
small-
that's the voters.
There's a
to get
sliver
their
of those
referendum.
involved. Yeah,
If
they
you totally
are.
disregard the parents, then you're, of course, there's gonna be some parents that are not affected with property tax wise.
Right.
But most of them are, what, 2/3 or more? So I don't understand why we're totally
It had
pushing
to
those
do with
out.
had to do with the number of people that replied to the survey. That the majority of the people that replied to the survey were non-parents, not staff, correct? Is that what he meant by that?
I think it was weighted heavily to that. compared
Yeah,
to-
because of the numbers that responded to that. And we
But
did have.
when it comes time to vote, it's not gonna be that way.
No, it's gonna be the taxpayers.
Right.
That's who's counting.
Which there's more that probably don't have kids in the school than do have
Sure.
kids.
Just because of the age.
Right.
Where is the one page, because that was what
Because
I
we had
was
65 and
fascinated by.
over, 27%, 65
Yeah, that was
and
our
over.
highest demographic for people.
That was the biggest demographic that
Unlikely,
responded.
Well, and even in the 56, 64,
Yeah,
most of those don't have kids in school.
right.
They might have grandkids in school.
Where shows the ages.
So it's
So
a
that-
big,
that's
it's a
a-
big weighted.
Yeah, that's over 40% of your responses.
I'm gonna ask you anyway 1 year.
And Bill, to your point that you made about that graph with the purple there, I think it's important to point out too, that while we can take that 7% that would support either option and shore up the option two, the 7% could also support option one. and
Absolutely.
Make that a 51% to 36%, so
Right.
I don't know that I would interpret them as being any closer than 8%. And, the others, the parents, that's a 14% spread.
Yeah.
Staff is a big spread, and I realize that's probably small, that's.
And that goes back to Mike's comment where he said that people felt like it was I don't know the right word to use, but it's not a good survey because we forced them into picking between two options. Because I had a lot of people tell me that it was like you wanted us to pick between either consolidating the grade schools or not. And then you had this high school thing over here that was a la carte of, do you want to do this, or this? And it was like they weren't all tied together. Like, it should have been option two was do a little bit at each grade school to improve the educational experience there and put a bunch of money into the high school. It wasn't really presented that way. And that was kind of how I thought we're looking. And we didn't communicate that well in the survey. Because I don't think anybody thought we'd take 17 million and say, split it up between Joy or New Boston and Toledo and build, completely rehaul the elementaries that way.
But I also think, and I mentioned this, I don't know, it was last month or the month before. I mean, our job is to sell it to the public. And like I said, and I remembered it wasn't the consolidation, it was the 1 cent sales tax when that was being proposed. The staff was behind it 100%. They had signs in their yards. They bought ads on WRMJ. They were, and I think that's, what we pick as our direction based on the community says. It's our job to tell them, here, this is the benefits of this. This is why we'd like you to vote for this, and run it like a campaign. I mean, that's how I see our job and what we're supposed to do. We're the promoters of this idea. So that's my thoughts.
Any other discussion? Okay, move to 9.7, Toledo Town Bus Stops.
Just an update on that. I have spoken with Johannes about some potential workarounds to be able to do those town stops in the afternoon as well as the morning. We were able to add back morning pickups a lot. It seems like we had a lot more students in the afternoons. One of our big concerns was with not only capacity on the buses, and Johannes buses have tended to run over capacity due to the town stops, over their legal capacity, where we've had to turn students away at a bus stop, but also with the quarantine rules for busing, even though there's no limit. If we pack kids on 3 to a seat, front to back for the town stops, we ended up in some circumstances quarantining almost 20 students based on a positive case that, with changes, with not having those town stop kids on there, we've quarantined very few students on a bus. We're able to separate out those rural route kids are spread out of it. I believe, I'm certain that if we indicate to Johannes that pack them on there, they're gonna go back to doing that as best they can. Our concern is that we may be putting a lot of kids out of school when we have that positive case that pops up on the bus. The real underlying issue is the bus driver shortage. In spite of advertisements, some additional incentives, Johannes was able to attract one additional driver. They're not finished with their training yet. We were able to attract one additional driver. They're not finished with their training yet. That process takes a long time, start to finish. I can tell you, we'd like to have 2 or 3 more drivers. Johannes would like to have more than 20. Jason is short that many drivers across the rest of his operation. So it's not that we're not interested in hiring and training people, and we both fully fund that training process. It's a matter of getting people that are willing to do that. And we're going to continue to struggle with that. I've had some inquiries about, what are we going to do to enforce that contract? Well, we have very few options in that. Town stops are not part of the contract. They were not part of the bid, either in 2010 or 2013 when that was done. It was for the routes, the extracurriculars, some of those other things, the shuttles, but not the town stops. And I think we've tried to, encourage people to understand that those are courtesy within 1.5 miles. And I understand the hardship that's caused for a lot of people, and I know as it gets colder and the weather gets worse, that's an even bigger inconvenience, and that maybe at this time we're willing to just take our chances with crowded kids on the bus, because we really don't have any other options at this point.
Do we have on the west end have an extra sub or, anyone that is not driving full-time currently that could maybe sub in for Johannes?
No, our Ernie is driving most days now, as our bus mechanic. He's really our full-time sub is driving a regular route right now. Hopefully, when we get our new driver back in, he'll be able to be our daily fill-in for whoever's missing, and maybe Ernie could be the extra that could run a town. That's one of the things we've talked about, can utilize one of ours. We've got some other concerns coming up too. I know that we'd like to continue to offer more tutoring, but that's, the difficulty we run into there, at least with our drivers, is that we might schedule those times, but then because of extracurricular activities, I had them short a driver, and we either have to cancel tutoring or notify parents that there's no busing for tutoring that day. So those are some of the things we'd like to work on. Right now, I was notified today we've got some really good wrestling numbers, and that's exciting. But one of the things we've done in the past is get all those 5th and 6th grade wrestlers from here over to the wrestling building after school. Well, there's over 30 of them, and that takes a real bus. It's not just an activity bus. And so that's a question that's going to come up here in the next couple of weeks that we're going to have to try to work on some solutions for.
So how many months out are the new incoming drivers?
Ours?
I'm gonna pick up over here. No,
Ours is, because she is a former bus driver of ours, hopefully everything goes smoothly really wish she hadn't let it lapse entirely, because otherwise she just stepped right back in. For the candidate with Johannes, I know, I think they were brand new, so it could be longer, particularly if they don't pass their driving test and the DMV the first time around, and the failure rate is pretty high for new drivers.
So it's an issue that everybody's having.
Yeah.
We're just gonna have to deal with it until it's.
But I wanna make sure I heard you right, so we're having to cancel or not have tutoring programs so that we can have extracurricular programs. That doesn't make any sense to me.
We don't have busing available for the tutoring.
I understand that, but that doesn't make any sense to me. Why, how would, that's
No, I
frustrating to
think-
me that extracurricular
I think
is
you meant it
more
was
important
two
than
separate
tutoring.
issues, right? We don't have enough for tutoring, and then now we might have this wrestling issue on top of already not being able to provide for, but I'm with you, Donnie.
But isn't it kind of odd that we're,
Well, and
that
to
we're,
me, the fifth and sixth graders are not technically a part of the junior high program. So to me, it should be up to the parents to get them to practice, or, you know, I mean, when my kid had practice at 6 o'clock at night, we have to arrange to have him picked up and then taken back down to Joy. That's fine. I mean, we carpool, get parents to help out. So,
I think we had a goal, it would, to me, it would be more important to
For the tutoring.
have busing for tutoring rather
Absolutely.
than have busing for extracurricular, but that's just me.
I 100%.
But you're
agree
saying
with
we
you.
don't have it for either.
Right.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
I
think
think
he's saying that we're having
get
to-
their own, find your own way.
Yep.
And I think Mr. Holford talked to this a little bit. We had this discussion early on that there are districts that are asking their parents to transport their kids to their athletic contests right now because they don't have the bus drivers to do it.
We're gonna end up there.
Yeah.
Did you hear WRMJ, they're trying to get somebody to be EMTs in New Boston? I mean, this is where we're going.
They've been
I mean, we're gonna be out of the
posting that-
busing
they've been posting for that for months.
some year. Yeah, we'll be out of the busing. We can't compete, can't find it.
Yeah, so,
Well, most parents want it, they love to run their kids all over the states to play baseball and football and everywhere. All
Yeah,
this
I'm with you.
traveling stuff, they just will
Yeah.
go for regular high school too.
And we get a little carpool group together, and it's easy.
You make it work.
Yeah.
It's extracurricular.
Kick that.
all right, number 10, administrative reports. Is there any additional comments? Any administrators?
This is Wassing, this is Mulder, this is Nice Call, recommended for the Amplify CQA Ambassador Program, which would work closely with Amplify CQA to continue to improve the curriculum. We'll go through being nominated for it, and so we'll go through another step process to hopefully be accepted on that, and then we'll close with Amplify moving forward.
I didn't really get all that. You're doing something?
So, Mrs. Mulberg, Mrs. Siwasik, and Mrs. Stice were all nominated for an ambassador program with Amplify CQI, which is our reading curriculum. That's what Mrs. Siwasik presented on at that time. And so they're nominated for that, and so if they're accepted in that program, they'll work closely with Amplify to continually improve their reading curriculum and what they're doing and all the new and upcoming things that they utilize for their programs. So, it's exciting to be nominated at that point.
We get paid extra for that, for letting them help develop that.
You know, but they do, if they get accepted to it, yeah, absolutely, I think in there, it's stated on $2,000 a year, they meet 6 times virtually, and then have the new.
We don't get the
products.
curriculum cheaper or anything.
That was not discussed, but.
We
I
get
asked.
really good people that can teach it though, right?
Yes, yeah, and that's the thing, that's.
We're helping develop it, it's kind of ours, isn't it?
Yeah, doesn't work that way. All right, any questions or, no? Any other questions or comments?
See, we're getting back to normal on disciplines. There for a long time, we didn't have any.
All right. And, session.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Smock,
Yes.
Wagner. Yes. Gates,
Yes.
Palmer, Barry,
Yes.
Bounds,
Yes.
Munson.
Yes.
Okay, motion approved. Let's meet back here at 8:25.